Thank you very much. So I think that these two papers really are, first of all, kind of at the heart of what this conference is about, and is evidenced by the discussion for the other two papers, something that many of us feel very passionate about. It's something that's kind of what we do and what we stand for. So a few reflections, and I'm going to, as I'm heading up the defined contribution efforts at State Street Global Advisors, I'll add some of my own comments as well from that perspective. But one reflection, first of all, is that some of the truths that we have, well, they're a little bit more nuanced. And I'm thinking of Greg and your discussion here around risk aversion. That, the kind of what I thought of as a truth is that, the older we get, the less willing and less able we are to handle investment risk. Well, you showed that that's not necessarily the case. It depends on the questions that we ask and how we define risk and intended versus actual behavior and so forth. Also, and Raquel, you brought this up in terms of, the perceptions maybe of, well, that retirement versus cognitive decline. And then you say that overall the trend is maybe that retirement has a negative effect on cognitive decline, but there are lots of nuances in terms of how exactly that kind of translates. It's very sensitive to the inputs that you have. And then third, you also bring this up, Raquel, is just the concept of retirement overall. It used to be so simple. We work, and then we stop working. And it's kind of the old defined benefit world. And it's so if retirement in the past was almost like a light switch, work, then do something else, today's retirement is more like a dimmer. We evolve into retirement. Half of people today, we show in our research, expect to work in retirement. We see that in the US, we see that in other countries as well. So the way we think about retirement and decision-making in retirement, well, we need to adjust to this new retirement as well. So as I'm thinking of these two papers, I was trying to put together thoughts. I think of three categories or kind of chapters on my comments. The first one is when we should make decisions as it relates to our retirement. What age? It needs to be a band, and Greg, you mentioned this, that we're not all equal, but around what time should we make those decisions? Second is, what are the implications of these two papers for our life early in retirement? And then third is, what are the implications for late retirement? And at least to me, it's a good starting point here is to think about what are participants saying? What are individuals saying? And with that, and given that you also came up that you appreciate the visual representation, I want to show a quick video on that.
I think with your employer, it will start at age 55 because they obviously know how old you are, so they will start to ping those individuals within their companies who are at that age to get you to start thinking about your retirement.
I have a plan, and that's about 85.
No, but just raise your hand. So Jeffrey, you do. Mark, you do.
Kind of.
About half of you do have a plan.
But it really should have started at age 30, 35.
Yeah. I'm sorry, what did you say?
It really should have started at age 30 or 35.
Yeah, how would you know that if you didn't have
How
any
many-
data?
I mean, the
How do you
discipline.
agree with that? That you should have started when you were,
They're saving.
Absolutely.
you should have started saving more?
Yeah, more disciplined.
Even,
More plan. I think you take the point by which you start retiring and starting to draw on it by the number of months of your life expectancy and hopefully balance it. And if it's not enough, front load it, hope you die early.
Okay.
That's the truth.
it's like, I think I'll be okay. And I hate to say this, but I've guilted my two boys into saying every time I did something for them, it was one of these you're my retirement, you're my retirement. And they're doing well, so I'm sure, I'm never gonna be in the poorhouse. I mean, I know I'm gonna be okay. But it's still kind of an awful feeling to think that I'd have to be dependent on anybody. But, I mean, I wanna live near the water, so I want a little little house like this that's on the water.
You hope you've made the right choices. I'm close to retirement, so it is always concerning, I think, about whether you will have enough to carry you over. I'm in, relatively good health, so, I certainly don't see myself expiring anytime soon. So, what else do I need to do to ensure that, I'm secure?
So the background on these focus groups was that we asked people that are relatively close to retirement to project out what are financial needs, let's say at age 70, 75, 80, 85. And you can just sense the discomfort in the room, the folded arms, the nervous laughter, the kind of the joke, so maybe I won't be around by then. I think they expired by then. The main retirement strategy, and I think that was clear in this video, is hope. Hope is the main strategy. I hope things will just work out, that my family will take care of me and so forth. And I think that we should push ourselves, with the help of these two papers as well, to provide more clarity and planning and predictability for individuals as they start preparing and help them prepare for a successful retirement. Megan, you were part of this. You saw the entire day. Anything else that you want to add to what I just mentioned?
So what was really interesting about this focus group was we did a laddering. Can you use the mic?
Yeah.
So what was really interesting about this focus group is that we did a laddering exercise and we asked the participants to visualize themselves in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And for the most part, that first part of retirement, they visualized all of the things that are generally associated with retirement, walking on the beach, and all of those dreams of doing things, that honeymoon phase, doing the things that they didn't have time to do during retirement. But when they got to the age of 80, there was a clear demarcation in the behavior, the body language, they didn't even want to visualize 80 and beyond. It was something they didn't want to think about. And so I think, to Fredrick's point, it is a real call to action for us in the industry to think about how we can better assist those at that point, because they didn't even want to think about it.
Thank you. All right, so back to those three key things that I mentioned. First is when we make decisions around retirement. So let's look at extremes. I mean, one would be making decisions well into retirement, what the rest of our lives will be, 80, 85. And there's the risk then of cognitive decline. There's also, as Greg, in your paper, you mentioned just the risk of kind of how we make decisions, and maybe we're skewed towards those more positive decision scenarios. So it seems like we should make those decisions a little bit earlier. On the other extreme, let's say that we make decisions at 40, 45, it just seems too early. We're not thinking as much about retirement at that point. I'm also making the case, since this is something that's coming up in our research, that being part of a retirement program is a great learning tool. And Raquel, that came up also in your discussion around just kind of learning and ability to make decisions, that is also a positive correlation with time. So it seems like a sweet spot is somewhere between, let's say, 55 and 75 for making the major financial decisions. And then that may vary from person to person. It may vary also from one country to another. But I'd say that we should also take into account some practical implications. So for example, in the US, in the defined contribution world, about half, at least my rule of thumb is that about half of the assets tend to leave the defined contribution plan and being rolled over to an IRA between 65 and 70. So if our goal is to affect and nudge as many people as possible, we should try to make those decisions earlier, around the retirement age, around the age 65, around that time that Raquel, that your comments in your paper really focused on. So the second topic is just what are the implications early in retirement. And Megan, you mentioned honeymoon period. That same phrase was used in Raquel in your paper as well, that this is it could be the start of a new dream career, or this is when we realize our aspirations. I mean, I hear at least that flexibility is key for investors in that period of time. So having a system from a public policy plan design standpoint that provides that flexibility is key. And then later on in retirement, and again, we can debate on the different age cohorts here, but maybe somewhere between 75 and 85, our needs become more stable, our spending is more stable, maybe in the US with the exception of one-off expenses from a healthcare standpoint, but still, avoiding some of those key decisions for the reasons also that Greg mentioned it could be helpful. I think that's helped by these two papers as well. One thing, last comment I have is so what should we do? And I think that these two papers help provide insights for the design of a better system that can help move us from that hope to more predictability and planning for individuals, as evidenced in this video. I also think backing up, I think that this conference is about making improvements, about listening carefully to each other, the insights that you provide, the discussions that we have. And I really feel like, with these two papers and the rest of the conversation, we have that responsibility of making retirement work. Thank you.